Do you think Nick Walker can win the Mr. Olympia? Do you think he has the physique? Like Shawn Ray says, I don't think Nick Walker represents what the Mr. Olympia is, physique wise, aesthetically pleasing wise. Do you think
Yeah,
Nick?
it depends on, I guess, what your view of pleasing. Was Dorian Yates pleasing? Some people say no. So
Yeah,
I agree with Shawn that I wouldn't say that Walker could never win it, but I will say more likely than not, I can't see him winning the Olympia. The 26-year-old kid,
there's Dallas McCarver.
McCarver, yeah, and I
You
don't know.
know,
The problem is, I had a conversation the other day with Jay Cutler.
and Cedric McMillan. Let's not forget the great
He was
Cedric
great
McMillan.
too.
Jeez.
Said, yeah. I had a conversation with Jay Cutler, and he says that the people, we should go more to the aesthetic, the Bumstead type of look.
Yeah.
And I said, I countered with, yeah, but people who are paying the big tickets love to see those freaks.
Is it that maybe bodybuilders are a little bit insecure? That they have a lot of
A
muscle. They have a
little
lot
bit.
of,
Are you
you
kidding?
know, yeah. So let's just be honest. It's true. We can be
A
very
little
insecure.
bit. You should see him in Gold's Gym. Wheeler would go in there and ask you, come in and take a look at me and see what you think. And if you didn't say he was absolutely 1,000% on, he would be all upset with you.
Okay. So again, Lonnie Teper. This is what he's again contributed to the sport, coining these nicknames for these athletes, which is like people don't realize where these nicknames come from. Come from Lonnie Teper. Okay, guys, that's where it started. So now, if you could give some of the new guys nicknames, I don't know if you've done this yet, but what would you give Derek Lunsford as a nickname? Put you on the spot.
Maybe Derek the Destroyer Lunsford.
Great.
Yeah, and if that goes, watch my opinions.
You need a podcast. You're the Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding. You know every
why people
detail.
won't use me? Honey Rambot said, "Oh, you should be on my podcast," but all the bodybuilders would be mad at you because you may say something that they don't like. I said, "Well, then what's the use of having one?"
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode of Muscle Discord. And wow, I have a very, very special guest on the show, a legend in the sport, Lonnie Teper. Man, welcome to the show.
Well, thanks for having me. I heard that word legend. I thought maybe you had somebody else on.
I know you're going to crack a lot of jokes. That's what you're known for. The reason why I wanted to have you on, Lonnie, is because a lot of the new generation into the sport, the 18 to 25, they don't know who Lonnie Teper is. Okay. But I do, because I'm older and I've seen what you've done in the sport, am seeing all the shows. So we'll get into that, but I want to give people the understanding of why I want someone who I think is an icon in the sport on the show, because I think people need to know about this, need to know about the history of bodybuilding and what's involved and who are some of the major players in the industry. And I think you're a major player in the industry, and you deserve that, because it's just so important that people see this. So first off, let's just do a couple quick questions here, just to give a little background. Where are you currently located, Lonnie?
I live in the city of Alhambra in California. It's just, most people haven't heard of Alhambra other than the fact that Phil Spector lived here for a while, but
Okay.
It's just south of Pasadena. More people are familiar with Pasadena.
Okay. And outside of the bodybuilding industry, what's your profession? I think you were a college professor, but I don't know if you're still
I
teaching.
still am. My whole entire career, I combined writing, emceeing, and teaching. And at one point, I was teaching at 3 different colleges at one time. When you're part-time, you don't get full loads of classes, so they call us the freeway flyers. You have to bounce around to different schools. So I taught through the years. I taught many years at Cal State Los Angeles, where I started out as sports information director. And then I taught at Rio Hondo Community College, LA Trade Tech, Pasadena City College, and currently East LA. Well, I've been at East LA College for like 30 years as a part-timer.
Awesome. Okay. And no, quick before we get into the deep into the questions, tell us about the Lonnie Teper NPC West Coast Classic. How was that last weekend? Big
It
show.
was good. Our numbers had gone down a little bit the previous 2 years. Starting in 2020, a lot of people canceled their shows when we had COVID, and we decided to keep it. My partner Chris Minnis and I decided to keep it. And I called it the COVID Classic, and our numbers went down. We had like 77 bodies at that show. Then 2021 we came back at 158. 2023 we were at I think 120 something, 130. But then this year we went back up. We had 187 bodies and 350 counting crossovers. So it was very successful.
Awesome.
Biggest show in California to date.
Awesome. Yeah, that's no joke. Biggest state, and you got the biggest show, NPC show, in the state. So you're continuing to contribute to the sport of bodybuilding all these years later. So again, wanted to highlight that awesome show that you put on every year. Now you've been coined the Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding because you know every single detail about every single pro athlete, even amateur athlete. You know everything. You know what show they competed in, when they competed in, where they competed, like every detail. And alongside that, you've emceed over, I think, was it more than 400 shows now? It's probably
Around
more.
that 300, 400, somewhere in that category.
Okay. Yeah. And, that's including the Arnold Classic, the Ironman. Did you do any of the Olympias?
I did several Olympias. My first Olympia was 1993 in Atlanta. Wow. And in 1996, I emceed all 4 Olympias, the men and the women and the fitness. And I think we had the masters. I did all 4. I did 25 years of the Arnold, 20 years of the Ironman Pro, all 20 years. Yeah. 26 years of the NPC Nationals and 20 years of the USA for starters. Yeah. So that happens when you're old. You get to rack up a lot of numbers.
Yeah, that's impressive. Again, and that's for the fact that the younger generation may not even know about you. That's why I wanted to bring you on the show. Like, I want people to know, like, what you have contributed to the sport and what you've seen. You've seen all the great legends on stage, up close and personal. You've emceed the shows for them. And so it's just a treat to have you on the show.
Thank you.
You worked for Ironman Magazine, Weider Magazine, Muscle and Fitness Magazine. You were a writer for those magazines.
How do you know all that stuff?
Well, I do my research. And again, I've been around. I used to read all the Muscle Muscle Fitness magazines. All these magazines, I read them when I was younger, when I was coming up. So
you still look young to me, so I don't know how many you read.
But yeah, so that's how I know a lot of this stuff, and that's why I wanted to have you on the show. Speaking about emceeing, Bob Ciccarello is kind of the voice of bodybuilding now, and emceeing a lot of the big shows. He's the MC for the Mr. Olympia now. How do you think Bob's doing as an MC?
Oh, he's his record speaks for itself. As you mentioned, he MCs all the shows, and he's got that magnetic voice, and Bob does a really good job.
Yeah, good to hear. And so tell us how you got involved in bodybuilding, right? You've never been a competitive bodybuilder, but you've been involved in this for so many decades. How did you get involved in the sport?
Way back around 1980-ish, a buddy of mine and I, we used to go, do all kinds of sports. And he knew I was a writer. I was a sports writer at one point. And then he knew, and then I was getting my master's degree at Cal State LA in physical education. He said to me, you ought to be writing for these Weider magazines because they either have PhDs that are knowledgeable that can't write, or writers like yourself that can write that aren't knowledgeable about this stuff. He says, you mesh the two. So I finally got enough guts to call Joe Weider's office and set up a lunch with him, and went out on a Friday afternoon, and he blew me off. He didn't show up. And I was really upset. My temper was a little worse when I was younger. And I came home. It was about a 35-mile drive. When I came home, I said, that did it. He didn't even show up. And I tried. I'm not going to deal with him. And but he called me. He called me back and he said, I want to meet with you. And I went out the next Friday and turned in some stories to him and to Fred Hatfield. Basically, he was running Muscle and Fitness. Then I started writing for Flex magazine. I was doing the predictions because no one wanted to do them. They were afraid to do them. So I did they had me do the Mr. Olympia predictions, and they talked me in a way. I don't want to say 100%, but they talked me in a way of picking Rich Gaspari to beat Lee Haney, even though I didn't think that was going to happen. But they said, well, it'll make it a more exciting. And if you're correct on this, you'll really make a name. And so against my better judgment, I picked Gaspari. And of course, Haney, when I met Lee Haney at the Nationals in 1986, he put his hand on my shoulder. I didn't know who it was. I looked up and he says, hi, Lonnie, this is Lee Haney. I'm going to crush Rich Gaspari like a gnat. And I said, I was just kidding, Lee. I was just kidding.
Oh man, that's awesome. So you are the original like predictions guy.
Predictions and the names, because I come from a sports writing background.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anybody else in the industry who was actually a professional journalist.
Yeah.
I was a journalist. I have a degree in journalism and broadcasting, and I was a sports writer. I was fortunate enough to win some awards as a mainstream sports writer. And that's when I started coming up with nicknames, and I kind of carried that talent into the field of when I started writing for the bodybuilding magazines, which nobody had seen before. I was the first one that did cover stories where I'd get them give me pictures when you were a high school senior, your high school football player. I was the first one that when we had a contest, because in sports writing, you cover a game, you get it done that night. You don't wait 3 months like they did in the bodybuilding magazines back then. And I told my publisher, John Balick, he said, we went to the Nationals. He said, you can get it in a couple months. I said, you'll have it by Monday morning. He goes, what? We don't need it by Monday morning. I said, John, one of the edges that you can have is getting those contest results out before anybody else. And that'll give Ironman an edge in the competition. And that's what happened. But then everybody started doing the same thing. And they eventually caught up. They started doing the same thing we were doing.
Yeah.
I kind of take a little pride in the fact that I was the one that did those human interest feature stories and got the contest results in right away.
Yeah, you were innovative in what you were doing back in the day. And then a lot of other people copied what you were doing and your strategy. And this goes to show, the impact you had on the sport of bodybuilding.
Yeah, especially the nicknames.
Well, that's where we're going
Bob
next.
uses a lot of my nicknames, which is flattering.
Okay, so we'll get into that right now. So, you've coined a lot of the most top-rated bodybuilders in the world, their nicknames. And the ones that I got off the top of my head, you got Paul DeMayo, Quadzilla. You got Flex Wheeler, the Sultan of Symmetry. You got Paul Dillett. This one wasn't really used widely, but the building with feet, if I'm correct.
Oh, you are good.
Yeah.
I got to give it to you.
You got George Farah, Bulletproof. People may not know this one, Tommi Thorvildsen, Glutezilla. Okay. Go Google him, guys, after this. You'll see why he's Glutezilla, because he had the most shredded, like Phil Heath-esque glutes in the sport. Melvin Anthony, marvelous Melvin Anthony.
I just saw Melvin at the contest Saturday for the first time in years.
Yeah, I saw that on your Instagram page. Gustavo Badell, the freaking Rican. May he rest in peace. It's sad that he's gone so soon. But those are some of them. I don't know if there's more. I may be missing some.
Ahmad Haidar was Abdullah.
Ahmad Haidar. Okay, Abdullah. Yes.
And Chris Cormier is a real deal.
I missed that. It's a huge one. Okay. Who is there? Anyone else?
He looked like Evander Holyfield when he was a kid.
Yes, the real deal. You put the boxing gloves on in the magazine photo shoots. I remember that. Yeah. Okay. So again, Lonnie Teper. This is what he's again contributed to the sport, coining these nicknames for these athletes, which is like people don't realize where these nicknames come from Lonnie Teper. Okay, guys, that's where it started. So now, if you could give some of the new guys nicknames, I don't know if you've done this yet, but what would you give Derek Lunsford as a nickname? Put you on the spot.
Maybe Derek the Destroyer Lunsford. You know,
Okay.
he looks like he's.
Well, he is destroying the competition.
He destroys the competition. And it looks like he's going to be tough to unseat too. He's
Yeah.
pretty awesome physique.
Okay.
That they got quite a battle going with that Chapoon, but
yes,
I don't know. Lunsford is he's pretty thick and he's pretty balanced, and I don't know. You know, I don't see anybody else on the horizon that can take him out. Maybe other than if Chapoon, if he comes in a little off, and Chapoon, they're so close. What do
you think about his muscularity from the front, like the chest? And he's not as ripped from the front. He's ripped from the back, the glutes, the back, hamstrings. Yeah. What are the chest?
Lunsford's better from the back, and Chapoon's better from the front. And you know, one of those things where it can go either way, and it's a subjective sport.
Yeah.
And they're all so good. I mean, they're all so close. When you're talking about the Olympia, you're talking about the best bodybuilders in the world. So the margin of difference is going to be very, very small.
Yeah.
So, you know, I guess it depends on who you're friends with.
Okay. Yeah. We can get into that. What about Andrew Jacked? What is his?
I like him. He's I could see a guy like him could win too. I mean, he's bigger, symmetrical, conditioned. I would throw him in the mix.
Okay.
I'd throw him in the mix.
And I'm saying these names because I want to first see what you would give them nicknames, because we could start something here with these nicknames. And so
Boy,
what would
put the pressure on me? I haven't had breakfast yet.
Yeah. Andrew Jack nickname, if you can think of one. If not, don't worry about it. But I'm just trying to put you on the spot there.
Well, I'll work on that.
Okay, I work on Andrew Jack, and then another one I was going to ask for a nickname would be Samson Dauda.
Well, he's good too, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's
just got that conditioning issue from the back, is what he's got to hit the conditioning. That's all he's missing. That's all he's missing.
Yeah, I'm going to have to think about that one too, because you know I'm not following him as much as I used to. And when I'd see him all the time, the nickname would pop up. But sometimes, you know, Dave Palumbo would always ask me to give him nicknames right off the top, and sometimes I could. Sometimes I gave him a nickname.
Okay. What was that?
Palumbo.
Jumbo Palumbo. Oh, you gave even Dave Palumbo the nickname. Jeez.
Yeah, Jumbo Palumbo when he was big.
Yeah.
But the Ultimate Beef, Jay Cutler.
Okay. The Ultimate Beef, Jay Cutler.
So
much history.
Some of them are okay, some of them aren't.
Yeah. No, they're great. And you started that, which is pretty cool. And those names are still sticking with them today. Okay, let's move on to bodybuilding today versus the 80s, 90s, and the early 2000s. Is it better or worse? Are the competitors, the physiques, better or worse? What's your standing? What's your take on the current bodybuilding?
Well, everybody seems to be taking the take that they're way better in the 80s and 90s, early 2000s than they are today. And I don't know if that's absolutely true. There's different eras. When somebody asks me who's the best, I can't give you the best. I got to go by eras. Mm-hmm. Arnold or Sergio in one era. Frank Zane in another era. Dorian Yates, Lee Haney. How do you say who's better when Haney's last show he barely beat Dorian Yates at the 1991 Olympia in Orlando? Mm-hmm. And I don't know. I think a guy like Dorian Yates or Ronnie Coleman or Lee Haney, maybe even Phil Heath at their best. Could these guys today beat them? I don't want to say no, but I'd be surprised if they can beat them. I just think that those other guys just were a little bigger, and I liked their shape a little more. A lot of people think Dorian didn't have shape. He had shape too. He was symmetrical. He just was so rock hard that you didn't think about it.
Yeah.
So if I had to put money on who would win between Ronnie Coleman and Lunsford, I would take the big. Oh, that's another nickname. I forgot, the Big Nasty. Ronnie Coleman.
For Ronnie, yeah, the Big Nasty. Crazy. So that kind of leads me. I had this question a little further down, but now would the Shawn Rays, the Kevin LeBrons, the Chris Cormiers beat the Nick Walkers, the Samson Dowdas, the Andrew Jacks in that top five? This Olympia is Olympia, but let's say the guys that are second through sixth, is it the same? And could you see them? Could you see if Shawn Ray was competing in the Mr. Olympia this year with his peak condition and shape, and like Chris Cormier and Kevin LeBron, would they be beating these guys?
You know, it's easy to say yes or easy to say no, but until you see people standing side by side, you really don't know. You're going by memory as Shawn Ray. Andrew Jack is today. Samson is today. Lebroni was yesterday. You know, I mean, it's Wheeler. Was anybody better than Flex Wheeler at his best? Which I feel Wheeler's greatest condition was the 1998 Arnold Classic. Some people think in 93. I think the 98. I would probably give the edge to those guys. That was the era that I covered. Maybe I'm a little biased towards that. But these guys are good today. I don't want to take it away from them. They're good, but how do you find a better physique than Flex Wheeler at his best? Or when the Big Nasty came out at 270 pounds, you know, and Dorian Yates like chiseled out of rock, and Haney with that beautiful small waist and wide lats. It goes on and on and on. Kevin Lebroni was spectacular. Shawn Ray, look how great Shawn Ray was, and he didn't win it because of all these guys like Ronnie Coleman and Dorian Yates and people like that. And Chris Cormier, probably the most underrated bodybuilder in the sport, as far as I'm concerned, because nothing jumped out at you, as people say. That's the reason he's one of the best, because he was so balanced that nothing did jump out at you. I don't know, if I had to pick a top 10 all time of those guys versus the current guys, I'd probably go with the old guys.
Yeah, it's just I'm kind of on the same field as you. That it's hard to beat Kevin LeBron and Shawn Ray and Flex Wheeler and put them in the top five lineup now at the Mr. Olympia.
Well, I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Dexter Jackson had 29 wins. Shawn Ray had 2. Who was better?
I was the biggest Shawn Ray. I still am the biggest Shawn Ray fan of his physique. I watched all his videos training when I was getting ready for shows. I used that as motivation, and that's hard because, Dexter obviously
you got the physique itself, but then you got to give Dexter credit for 29 wins.
Yes. You know, he's more accomplished with the accolades, if you want to call it, over Shawn Ray, because he's won so many pro shows and he's won the Mr. Olympia. Okay, he's won their own classics so many times over. And so, with that being said, overall, maybe he is a better bodybuilder than Shawn Ray. It's hard to say because I'm a fan of Shawn Ray's.
I think Shawn Ray could have won, should have won, might have won the 1994 Olympia when Dorian came out and had a torn bicep and he had problems with his quadricep. Kevin Lebroni was awful good then too, but I think that was the year that, if any year that Shawn Ray could have won it. He was good 93, 94, and 96. He was probably at his best, but he usually was good at every show. And he just concentrated on the Olympia. He didn't do a lot of other shows. But
okay, so that's the kickback here is Shawn Ray just did the Olympias and the Arnolds. Dexter did all these other pro shows, right? If Shawn Ray did just regular pro shows, he would have won those. He would have kicked people's ass.
We don't know that. That's pretty hard to do all those shows, because Shawn Ray came back, I think in 95 or what it was, and did the Ironman and got like 5th.
Okay.
And did the Arnold, got 3rd or 4th, somewhere in there. Okay.
But
he didn't win. So
okay, good points.
They're my point is they're both great bodybuilders.
Yes.
How do you choose one between the other one? How do you choose Ronnie Coleman at his best, Dorian Yates at his best? Most people would take Ronnie Coleman, but
yeah,
you know,
it's apples and oranges. It's apples and oranges.
Apples and oranges. What about Samir Bannout, 1983 look?
Yeah.
Lee Labrada. What about Lee Labrada? He beat Shawn several times at 180, 185 pounds. So
yeah,
they're all great. It's hard to separate them to me. It's good for banter and so forth, but I don't know who's the greatest of all time. Do you think your top 5 greatest bodybuilders? That's what I was just.
Well, asking. I was going to ask you, since you're jumping ahead. I'm going to say, I would say Lee Haney, obviously. Okay. Is one of the all-time greatest, and then Lee Haney and Ronnie Coleman are like tied with my kind of all-time favorite bodybuilders, and then Shawn Ray is in there, Kevin LeBron, Flex Wheeler, obviously, Chris Cormier, Samir's in there, Dorian.
See, it's hard to do because you've gone way past 5.
Yeah. Yeah, but the best, if I had to pick one bodybuilder that I just think came onto that stage and shocked the world, it would be Ronnie Coleman.
Yeah, the Big Nasty. When I saw him in his room in 1998, that's where I gave him the nickname. It was shocking what he looked like. Gee, it was nothing, anything like it, And Jay Cutler, Jay Cutler's got 4 Olympia wins, 3 Arnold Classic wins, a lot of other victories. Jay Cutler's got to be thrown in that field too. And Jay says that Ronnie's the best. Ronnie's the best of all time. Yeah,
he does. What about Shawn Rhoden? Rest in peace, Shawn Rhoden. What's your take on when he was competing? Your thoughts on him and how he stacked up against?
I always liked Shawn Rhoden. I covered Shawn Rhoden when he was doing the Team Universe way back when, in the early 90s, late 90s. When he won the Olympia, I was one of the few that thought it was deserved. A lot of people said he shouldn't have won. There's no way he shouldn't have won, and this and that. And I thought he should have won. I thought he was so sharp that day, and a beautiful symmetry and the small waist. And, I don't know what happened to Shawn Rhoden, like you say, rest in peace. How long he could have been around, but I think he deserved the victory.
Yeah.
A lot of people said no, Phil Heath definitely should have beat him. But I think as great as Phil Heath was, and he was great, I would say Shawn Rhoden deserved to win that one.
Yeah. Okay. And we can't forget Phil Heath. Okay. We just skipped over him. Yeah, he's right up there with Ronnie and Lee Haney in the sense.
Oh, that's what I'm saying. There's so many great ones. How do you choose? Really, you'd have to see them side by side.
Yeah.
You put them Arnold, Haney, Dorian Yates, Flex Wheeler, Shawn Ray, Paul Dillett, Chris Cormier, Lee Labrada. How many? We can go on and on and on and on. And Jay Cutler. Well,
there was Victor Martinez who many thought should have beat Jay Cutler. What was it, 2007?
2007 Olympia. Victor Martinez was terrific.
Yeah.
I think at his best, I think he was probably as good as any of them.
Yeah.
So I emceed him when he won the Nationals in 1990. Was it? No, not 2000, I believe it was. 2000 in New York. He won the Nationals. The light heavyweight and the overall. And boy, he was good. Victor Martinez was really good.
Yeah.
I think
who knows?
At his best, he could stand toe to toe with anybody. That's my whole point. That you got 10 or 12 or 15. I did a story for Flex magazine when I first started writing, and I interviewed Joe Gold, and I said, if there was a bodybuilding Hall of Fame, who would you put in? And he put in 5 people. He limited it to 5 people.
Okay.
And that was really tough to do. Frank Zane wasn't one of them, who 3-time Mr. Olympia.
Yeah.
So I think he had Arnold, Lee Haney, John Grimmick, Steve Reeves, who didn't even compete that much.
No.
I can't remember who his fifth one was. Sergio Oliva. So,
Yes.
to me, there's just the greatest in different eras. Different eras. It's hard to compare.
What about Sergio Oliva Jr.? What's your take on him? Does he have a potential to get into that top 6 of the Mr. Olympia? And he's following in his dad's footsteps.
Yeah, but so far, I would say I don't see that.
Okay.
That's you talk about top 6 at the Olympia. What about Labrada? Can he sneak in the
Hunter?
top?
Yes, Hunter Labrada. Yes. Okay, you got 2 of these guys.
Very good. We talked about Sampson. We talked about Andrew Jack, but we didn't talk about Labrada.
We didn't talk about Hunter.
You mentioned Nick Walker.
Yeah, what's your thoughts on what's Lonnie Teper?
He's a freak and a half. Okay. To me, he doesn't have the most pleasing physique, if that's what you like. But boy, does he have a lot of muscle.
Yeah.
So I think this Olympia is really going to be interesting because I don't think Chapoon's going to come out any worse shape than he has been.
Yeah.
And Lunsford, if he comes in looking like he has, can Lunsford run off a string of 4 or 5, 6 Olympias? Some people think he can. I'm not certain that's the case.
Do you think Nick Walker can win the Mr. Olympia? Do you think he has the physique? Like Shawn Ray says, I don't think Nick Walker represents what the Mr. Olympia is physique-wise, aesthetically, pleasing-wise. Do you think
it depends on, I guess, what your view of pleasing. Was Dorian Yates pleasing? Some people say no. So
yeah,
I agree with Shawn that I wouldn't say that Walker could never win it, but I will say more likely than not, I can't see him winning the Olympia.
Okay.
I just don't think he's terrific.
Yep.
But there's a lot of controversy now. I mean, look who the most popular guy in the world is right now on that stage. C-Bump, right?
Yeah.
Is he built like Walker, or is he built more like
Arnold
or Flex Wheeler?
Yeah.
Not really like Wheeler, but
No, he's not. But yes, you're right. C-Bum is the most popular bodybuilder in the world, and he happens not to be an open Mr. Olympia, so that's interesting.
See, Shawn Ray was 205, 206 pounds. He held his own against all those guys.
Yeah.
The problem is when he and Yates were standing side by side, Yates was just so much bigger.
Yeah.
And so much harder. He had like a rock for a back.
Yeah.
So it's interesting, when it's subjective. It's not like the Olympics that we're going into where you hit the tape first, you win. This is all a matter of opinion, and we've had a lot of decisions where people did not think the person that won should have won.
Yeah. Agreed. There's been controversial calls
going way back to Arnold in 1980. Franco Colombo, Chris Dickerson. A lot of people doubted those victories. So I don't know. I mean, it's just, I'm glad I'm not a judge.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. It is not easy for what they have to do. I mean, it is not easy. They sit through a whole show and they're doing.
Sugar Shawn Ray was another nickname.
Wow. Sorry. I actually didn't even get that one. Yeah. Sugar Shawn Ray. Crazy. So let's talk a little bit. Let's talk about the Olympia and bringing the Arnold here. The Arnold Classic has announced they're doing a $500,000 first place prize. And what's your take on that?
To do that? Are they allowed?
Yeah, they did it. Arnold just went ahead and did it. So he's doing it. He announced it on stage.
Didn't fight it. The Olympia didn't fight it.
Well, they can't. What can they do?
But I thought there was some rule that said,
I think now that Joe's gone, I think
the
doors open.
Out the door, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad it's out the door.
Yeah.
These guys deserve more money.
Exactly. And that was what I was going to ask you. Do you think pro athletes should get paid more money for the prize? Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And
it's just like women's basketball. Now you see it rising with Caitlin Clark, and now it's getting more visibility, and they're starting to fly.
Yeah.
instead of taking a bus, they're starting to get feature stories on TV.
Yeah.
Bodybuilding, I think, and I've been a sports writer, like I said, I've covered all the sports in the world. I think bodybuilding is probably the hardest of all time because you have to lead a Spartan lifestyle for months before the event. You can't go out, you can't eat anything.
Can't go for beers after the game. You can't do you can't do any of that
you
stuff.
You can't go anywhere. You can't have a drink. You can't do it. So, and your body changes. You don't know what it's going to do from day to day right before the show. And I think it's great. They're going to have, you said 500,000 for first, right? For first, yeah. What's second going to be? I think it's probably in the 250 or something range, right? And then trickles down from there. But do you think they should spread that money over all of the top 10 versus just giving first such a big? Yes, I do. It's kind of funny because I think first place does deserve 500. But if first place gets 500, I don't know, second place should be way down to 250. Yeah. I mean, in a perfect world, and it's not my money, how about 500 for first? How about 400 for second? How about 300 for third, 200 for fourth, and 100 for fifth? Yeah. And then the last 5 places, give them all, I don't know, 50 or something. I don't know. 50,000 if you can. Yeah. I mean, now that's easy to say. It's not, it's a lot of money, and it's not my money. It's Jake's money. But and there's a lot of divisions. There's a lot of this fitness, figure, bikini, men's physique. What do we do with the other divisions? You know, well, C-Bum's the most popular bodybuilder in the world, and he's not getting paid nowhere near as much as nowhere near. And those women work hard too, and they're not getting a lot of money. You know. No. So, but there's only so much money to go around, and bodybuilding is a visual sport. It's you can't have the money like the Lakers, where you have an arena of 20,000 people selling out every game, or football and the Rams selling out 80,000. You don't have those funds. So, if it wasn't for Jake Wood, we may not even have an Olympia. That's true. Yeah, he came along when it looked like, what's going on with the sport? Is there even going to be a sport anymore? Here comes Jake Wood to kind of save it. Totally. And you had AMI, what was it, David Pecker used to own it, and then sold it to Jake Wood. And I was going to ask you, how do you think Jake Wood and Dan Solomon are doing running the Olympia now? Well, from what I've seen, they're doing a hell of a job. Yeah. I'm not on the inside, but I don't know Jake. I've never met Jake. I've known Dan for many, many years. And he's very, very talented, very focused. And Jake obviously loves the sport and got the deep pockets, and he's opening them up. So that's a great combination. Yeah. Yeah. And it's exciting that the Olympia is going to be back in Vegas this year. Yes. In Florida. It needs to be home in Vegas for sure. Do you think the Olympia should do what it used to do when it used to go to South Africa, to London, to Berlin, or wherever it used to go? Do you think it should move around? Because a lot of bodybuilders are having problems with visas getting here. Like Barus Tabani, he hasn't been able to get here. You got Nathan Diasha dealing with visa issues. They can't come compete. He qualifies for the Olympia every year, but he can't compete. Who's very good as well. Diasha's very good. Yeah. I just interviewed him yesterday, so that's coming out as well. But yeah, I can see both sides of the story. If it's doing well in Vegas and it's making money, and it's the Sin City and people are coming from all over the world, and all these things to do. It's a tourist destination. But at the other hand, I think having it in other countries and giving other people a chance to see these people would be good too. Yeah. So that's an interesting question. I don't know if that's even in their mindset or not. Probably they're thinking this Vegas forever. Yeah. Yeah. I think so too. It is. It's not easy to set up, go to another country, deal with the logistics of it. Flying your crew down there and everything. Like it's a lot. So I went to the 89 Olympia in Rimini, Italy, and I'm still jet lagged. Yeah. So yeah, it'd be nice if they could do it, but I don't think do you think they'll ever do like what the Arnold did, is have spin-offs of like the Arnold Brazil, the Arnold, UK would be the Mr. Olympia Brazil, the Mr. Olympia, or is that would it get too weird if they started doing that? It's too much money, I would think. Who's going to pay all that prize money? It's like a franchise. It's the Arnold franchise it to other. Yeah, if other people paid for it, I mean, I guess they could do it, and
to expand it, to get it into other countries.
They could, but it's hard for these people that it's not like baseball where you can play Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Yeah.
You compete in a contest on Saturday. They used to have those European tours where they had like 4 or 5 shows in a row in the following weekends, and it was really hard on the bodybuilders. I mean, it's hard to keep that peak, and you're still dieting, and the Olympia's over, and you want to eat everything you can. You want to go to Marie Callender or IHOP, and you can't. You got to keep on dieting, and how safe is it to do that? That's another story. You got to look at the health of the people too. And I teach health in college, and I think you got to be concerned about that. That's a negative part of the sport of people dying, but the fact is, a few of them have died. Now I don't know what caused the death. I don't have an autopsy in front of me, but what caused Shawn Ray's death? I don't know.
I think he has an ulcer. There was internal things going on inside him. So I think that's kind of maybe what happened.
Well, and then we had the 26-year-old kid.
There's Dallas McCarver.
Yeah, and I don't know. The problem is, I had a conversation the other day with Jay Cutler.
And Cedric McMillan. Let's not forget the great Cedric.
He was great
McMillan.
too. Yeah. I had a conversation with Jay Cutler, and he says that we should go more to the aesthetic, the Bumstead type of look.
Yeah.
And I countered with, but people who are paying the big tickets love to see those freaks.
Yep.
And then he said, but look how popular Bumstead is compared to the Mr. Olympia. And I said, I can understand your viewpoint there too. But it doesn't cost money to log onto somebody's website when you're paying $500-$600 for a ticket at the Olympia. Do most of them prefer Bumstead over Lunsford? I'm not so sure.
I think the younger generation does, the 18 to 25, but I think the 34 to 55, they want to see the bodybuilders. That's what they grew up with. They didn't grow up with.
Let me ask you a question. Are you a track fan?
A little bit, depending on who you talk.
Let's say is someone you're Canadian, Ben Johnson.
Yes.
Ran 986 or something like that, and failed a drug test.
Yeah.
He got off the drugs. He was running 10.1, 10.2, 10.3.
Yeah.
The fans didn't like it.
Yeah.
They were mad. And this is Stu said, I want to see something. Remember the movie Bigger, Stronger, Faster?
Yes. Yeah.
That's what these people want now. Is that the best way to go? I'm not saying that. No. I'm not saying that's the best way to go. But I still think a large majority of the fans prefer those big, freaky guys, I mean, and I don't know. It's you look at Lunsford. What's Lunsford's size? 5'6"?
5'6", 240, 230 on stage. 230? Yeah, 230 on stage, probably. Yeah.
Yeah. Could Shawn Ray beat Lunsford?
I would say probably. He could give him a run for his money. He doesn't have the fullness in the lats like Lunsford has. He doesn't have the quad sweep that Lunsford has. But the conditioning front to back beats that,
Yeah.
So he takes him out there, right? But
yeah, that's true.
He'd be a little smaller. He's 205, 208 on stage.
Well, there's a great example of how rough this sport is.
Yeah.
And you got physiques like Shawn Ray, Kevin Levrone, even Paul Dillett, Flex Wheeler, that have never won the Olympia.
Yeah, Milos Sarcev.
Milos has a beautiful physique. He had a beautiful physique, and he never placed as high as he should have.
No.
But can you think of all the people who have not won the Olympia who competed for all these years?
Marcus
go, wow, it's a tough sport.
It is a tough sport. Do you think it's headed in a upward trajectory, or do you think it's kind of puttering along?
I wasn't sure, but when Arnold says he's raising the money to $500,000, and then we'll see what Jake Wood's going to do, I have a feeling they're not going to sit still.
No, they're going to match it or beat it.
Yeah, at least match it. I don't know. They deserve more money if they can get it. I hope they do. And it's a different type of sport. You know, it's like opera.
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of people like opera, a certain amount of people like bodybuilding, and the fans are the hardcore fans, and that's why I think they still want to see these freaks.
Agreed. I want to see him.
Nick Walker. Nick Walker's got a lot of fans.
He does. He's very popular. One of the most popular guys.
Yeah, he's a freaky guy, man. But
yeah,
doesn't necessarily have the shape and the aesthetics of what you may want a Mr. Olympia to be. But
yeah,
everybody's opinion's different. You know, a lot of these people that like the more aesthetic look, that's the type of physique they had. All the people that like the big freaky look, that's a physique that they had, like Nasser.
Yeah, Nasser.
Nasser wanted them big, and the bigger the better.
Yeah, he was one of the freaks. He was the kind of like the Nick Walker of back then.
Nasser was like 6 foot, about 270.
Yeah,
260, whatever. He was huge.
I wanted to chime in a little bit about you. Back in the day, you got some, pushback from a lot of people because you would critique people's physiques, and you were very blunt. You were very opinionated, and you got a lot of kickback on, just giving your constructive criticism of these physiques. And I'm doing that today, and I'm getting kickback when I just give my constructive criticism of a physique. And people will say it's trash talking. You're trash talking these bodybuilders, when I'm just literally giving my opinion on, their lack of condition, or they need to work on certain body parts. How did you deal with that? Because you got a lot of it. A lot of people didn't like the predictions you made. They thought you were wrong and this and that. How did you deal with that way back in the day, before the YouTube age and TikTok and Instagram and social media? You were dealing with it back then.
Well, remember, I came from a mainstream sports writing background, where you gave your opinion. And if I'm being paid to cover an event, I feel it's my duty to give you my opinion of what I feel. Now, the athletes don't like that, because they want you to say every one of them's great.
Yeah.
It should have been a 30-way tie for first, and it just can't happen. And a lot of times when I did the Olympia predictions, I picked at somebody else just to make it kind of entertaining, just to make it a little different. I really didn't. I could have picked Haney and Yates and Phil Heath and all that every single year. And when I did, I was right. But because of the background that I came from, they have a problem. I know the sponsors don't want you to say anything bad about their athletes. But if a guy's being paid to critique the physiques, what is he supposed to do? Yeah. If somebody comes in out of shape, you're supposed to say, well, so-and-so looks great today. This is the best I've ever seen him. And he's like way out of shape. I mean, bodybuilding's a little different than the regular world of sports. There's too many, everybody's intertwined with everybody else. Like with me, not only was I a writer, but I was a promoter and I was an MC. So I was involved in the sport. So I was kind of caught between a rock and a hard place. So it was very difficult for me to kind of separate that. There's a lot of things I didn't write or I didn't say that I felt because of this many hats I was wearing. Yeah. But I'd say, in your case, if be true to yourself. If you feel this is what it is, that's the way it should be, in my opinion. Yeah, and to bring you up to speed, I was very critical of Samson Dauda in his lead up to the Arnold Classic and his progress photos, and I said, he's not going to win. Hadi Choopan's going to beat him because he's just lacking that conditioning in the hamstrings and glutes. And then he blocked me on social media because he didn't like, my assessment of him. And then he's blocked, Milos and Dennis James and other people too. And it's like, you're in bodybuilding. You're standing on stage and you're going to get judged, and you're going to get critiqued by the judges. You're going to get critiqued by the fans. You're going to get critiqued by the media. And if you can't handle that, then maybe you're in the wrong sport. Here's the problem. A lot of these athletes have sponsors, and the sponsors don't want people saying that because they feel it hurts their athletes placing. And, I mean, the bottom line is if you're being paid to be a commentator or to cover a sport, it's your opinion.
Yeah.
It's your opinion.
Yeah.
Shawn Ray and I used to argue all the time. He says, you shouldn't be criticizing my opinion, my shape in any way, shape, or form, because you haven't gone through the diet that I went through. And I said, Shawn, I don't have to diet like you do to see whether you're in shape or not, or whether Chris Cormier is in shape or Wheeler's in shape. You don't have to. I don't have to lift weights with you to analyze your physique. I don't have to diet with you to analyze your conditioning. But they don't want to be criticized in any way, shape, or form. So the guy blocks you. Well, bye.
But exactly. I'm not going to cover you anymore, I guess.
I don't care.
Yeah. Good advice. Good advice from Lonnie Teper. Okay, we're going to wrap it up.
I'm possibly. I got a friend of mine, Todd Tahunchik, is making a YouTube channel for me.
Yes. Yeah, great.
Yeah, and if that goes, watch my opinions.
You need a podcast. You're the Encyclopedia of Bodybuilding. You know every
why
detail.
People won't use me? Honey Rambot said, "Oh, she's be on my podcast," but all the bodybuilders would be mad at you because you may say something that they don't like. I said, "Well, then what's the use of having one?"
Exactly.
Said,
why people?
Everybody looks great. Like I said, it's a 30-weight tie for first.
Exactly. Just voice your opinion.
You feel somebody's glutes aren't in, or the hamstrings aren't as well, and that's what you should say. And you were right, and it ends up you were being right anyway.
Yeah, he lost.
So that's a fine line to deal with, and you're going to have the higher ups that don't want you to write stuff. I don't know. It's
is it that maybe bodybuilders are a little bit insecure? That they have a lot of muscle.
A little bit. Are you kidding?
Yeah. So let's just be honest. It's true. We can be very insecure.
Bit. You should see me in Gold's Gym. Wheeler would go in there and ask you, come in and take a look at me and see what you think. And if you didn't say he was absolutely 1,000% on, he would be all upset with you.
Yes.
They're dieting.
They're emotional. Yes. Yeah.
No carbs. You kind of can understand it. They're killing themselves, and they don't need to hear anything what they consider negative, even though it may be accurate.
It's constructive criticism. That's all it is.
Yeah. It's different. Like if you're covering baseball and you're covering the Dodgers and Ohtani goes 0 for 23 and you write that he's 0 for 23, those are stats you can't argue with.
Exactly. No.
It's not your opinion. He's gone 0 for 23.
Yeah.
So bodybuilding, you're judging somebody's physique where they don't agree with our assessment or your assessment on because it's a negative in their opinion. And that I remember Wheeler told me Dillett was upset with me at One USA, and Wheeler was upset with me. They all surrounded me because I picked, I think, Shawn to win the Olympia.
Yeah.
And they were really upset with me. And Wheeler said, "You don't understand the power you have." I said, "So you're telling me if I pick Shawn Ray to win the Olympia, the judges are going to read my column and say Shawn Ray should win the Olympia because I said it?" I said, "It never happens." And I said, "Besides, Paul, I picked you last year and you didn't win. You weren't mad about that. And Flex, when I pick you, how come you're not happy that I pick you?" So you can't please all of them, It's just I try to make it, because I came from a mainstream background, I tried to make it a little more entertaining. Yeah. Anybody can pick the defending champion. Anybody can do that. You're going to be right 98% of the time.
Yeah.
Make it a little exciting, and you risk the consequences, but I'm lucky I got out of that auditorium alive, man.
Yes, you're the original.
Sensitive is too minor a word for these people. They're way beyond that.
Yeah. Agreed. But Lonnie, I do appreciate you coming on the show. I think this is a great interview and a great insight to what you've contributed to the sport. And you're still here, you're still kicking it, and continuing to continue to contribute to the sport with your show, and you're still emceeing. And it's just a valuable insight that you have from one of the legends in the sport. I consider you a legend for sure.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Definitely have you back on the show. If you have a podcast, which I think is a great idea, I'd love to come on the podcast.
Okay.
So